Okay, welcome back to the channel, Dr. Body Sculpt. That's me. I'm Dr. Blake McCain. I am a trained medical doctor. I practice in Jamaica. I'm a public health specialist. Uh, we are having the conversation today about the ugly foot. So that's a part of our Sculpting the Foot series. And today we're talking about the ugly foot with Dr. Noel, a podiatrist who has over 20 years experience in her area of foot care. Podiatrists look at foot care. And we just ended the last segment talking about fungal infections of the nail, which then causes the ugly toe, not the ugly foot, the ugly toe. So in the foot, we got the toe. So which then causes that nail to become thickened. Welcome back, Dr. Noel. So we're gonna be talking about now a little bit more details on the toe itself and the nail of that toe that looks a little unsightly for the person who's looking at it. For us, we see this all the time, and we just try to get persons to feel better about themselves by using medical treatments. But interestingly, for us, we are exposed to, myself and Dr. Noel, we not only use medical treatments that are available, but we use as a coadjuvant to therapy. We also use other natural products. And we mentioned tea tree oil when we were closing just now, and how it can be applied to the nail to help with these fungal infections of the nail. But we advise persons at all times, you have this thickened toe, this darkened toe, this toenail that's not looking so well, you should at all times go and see your medical practitioner. To summarize, she mentioned shaving that toenail down and how it was done with a drill and it's non-painful, etc. So we just had our break. For me, it was one of refreshing my body. And we talk about sculpting the toe. I talk about sculpting the body. So I went and got some juice. I just made it actually, and it's morning here. So I actually have it before I have my main meal. And so I live what I do as a physician, telling patients what to do. I decided that let's show that I do it too. And as part of the purpose of this channel as well, that has motivated me to get this thing going, to have these conversations, because our people need it. And there are persons that cannot get the amount of information that they need from the right sources. And oftentimes in the part of the world I live in, persons may have difficulty just getting transport from where they live to come and find a doctor. Some parts of the world, including in great nations like the United States, there's a shortage of medical professionals. There's a shortage of podiatrists as well. And so persons cannot get the care that they need at the time that they need it. And oftentimes the problems are very, very simple. And you can start with something really simple until you get something to help yourself, like the tea tree oil. We just described the toenail infection by a fungus, specifically a fungus, if you're able to describe that and identify that. And you could start with a tea tree oil until you get to your doctor's office and your podiatrist's office, where you can be properly assessed and receive the treatment that is needed. So, Dr. Noel, welcome back. We're going to talk about the treatment of that fungal infection of the toenail. And you had quite a list of things. There are lots of things that are done in medical practice. We don't want to overwhelm persons, but we're going to try to tell them what actually is done and explain in as simple terms as possible, so that they will understand and not feel fear when they need to come in for care, and not sit with that toe until it becomes so unsightly. You have on your slippers and you got to walk with your toes like this. You know what I mean? I've seen that. I've seen people just curl their toes under because they're not happy about it. Sometimes they're children. Sometimes, they're young persons. In fact, I mentioned this one case. It wasn't even the toe. There is a type of nail that is placed on the nails. It's an artificial nail. I will not mention the name of it. I'll just describe it. But that type of nail, I noticed, it does not allow for the nail to breathe. And when it does that, it stays on that nail for a very long time. So people like to put it on because then you don't have to go and get this nail polish added every week because it chips right off. They keep it on for a month, 2 months. Then they go back and they reapply it. And what happens, which I've noticed, they come in with these unsightly looking toenails or fingernails. And the last, most recent case I saw was in a child. It wasn't her toe, it was her finger, because her fingers were done. But the same thing can happen in the toe. Mm-hmm. And when we looked at the toenail, at the fingernail, she was about 11 years old. I remember her well. And she was actually orphaned as well. And we had a health fair, and I met her at the health fair. And her guardian, who was such a wonderful lady, just took her mom died. So that's how she became orphaned in recent times. And the caregiver took her in and brought her for care. They did not know what was wrong with her nail. They said, hey, it just looks ugly and black. Ugly nail. Yes, but today we're talking about the ugly toe. In speaking with the child, she had no idea. So that's another thing. Persons have no idea what caused the problem. I don't know what I did. And so everybody left the room. Caregiver left. I had some students with me that day. And I said, come, tell me what's happening to you. And she said, I don't know. I don't remember. I said, you didn't put anything on your finger? Couldn't figure out what was wrong with her and why her just one finger looked like that. And she says, oh, I didn't go to a party, nothing happened, never slammed your finger in a door, didn't get stuck by something. She said, no. It's all right, fine. Nothing was placed on your nails. So I'm going through now all the possibilities just to trigger the child's memory. And she said, oh, I had on those pretty nails. So she had on some nails on the finger, and it was on these I call them artificial nails. I will not name them. And when they're placed on top of your nail, they're beautiful, they're pretty. And they stay there for a while. So she had it on for a bit, more than a few weeks. Don't know what happened, but by the time it came off, the nail was now looking blackish. I use that term. So she had a fungal infection of her fingernail. Simple treatment. Oh. Very simple treatment. Mm-hmm. But looking at the nail at first, you'd wonder, did she slam her finger someplace? Nah, it doesn't look like a hematoma. Nah, it's not that. What did this child do? Because she's so young to have that kind of issue. So I thought I should mention it because a lot of persons like having these beauty treatments done. And you need to be able to identify when something is happening so you can treat it, so you can actually treat it. So I mentioned it. These artificial nails that are placed stays on the nail. Your finger's not breathing for weeks, maybe 2-3 months, because, some persons keep it on for a little bit. They're beautiful. They're pretty, very pretty, look nice. I like to see them. And yeah, I like to see them. I never put them on because of, how I practice. But I've noticed it that they then end up, there's a subset of persons that do end up with these things and they're not understanding what is happening. And yes, the nail can clear up. So Dr. Noel, back to you. We're talking about the toe. The same thing can happen with the toe as a cause of this fungal infection. Fungus like moisture. Like when you put a piece of bread down and it's nice and moist and it's there for a little while, it likes moisture. Fungi, it's like mold. It's like you have those homes and you have, not for us in this part of the world, our houses are made of concrete generally, and inside we concrete, the partitioning walls of the home is made of concrete. But in recent times, with building practices changing for the construction of homes, because there's a greater need, the population has a greater need. So that's, talking about population and health as well, because one of our basic needs are food, shelter, and clothing. So we need shelter. And so within the home and the partitioning walls, the kind of material that is used, the one that you just put up real quickly in a day or two, concrete you need it to set for a good few weeks or months, kind of thing. You have mold, you have fungi. It's that same kind of fungi that grows on the nail. So
Right.
that fungi on the wall, we inhale it.
Mm-hmm.
Persons inhale it. They call it, oh, I've got mold in my house, and you have this constant cough forever. You hear me clearing my throat. That's because I picked up something a few days ago. So I actually drink this juice to help me. But that's not what happened. But it's the same kind of fungi. And this fungi grows within the walls of your home. It grows within that material, which is in some cases cellulose-like. So the fungi feeds on this material because it's tissue.
Yeah.
You know, in the past it'd be back, I would used to call it bagasse board made from sugarcane. But no, it's different kinds of materials that they're using. But it's cellular-like, it is plant-like, it's food, it's carbon. Let's use the word carbon, going all the way down to chemistry now. So the fungi need to live just like everybody else on earth. Viruses, bacteria, and fungi need to live, and they started living in your walls. So in the same way, the walls made of that kind of partition that is just very easy to put up, not concrete walls so much. Same thing happens with your nail. Same thing happens with your nail. You can have fungi. So the nail should be nice and clear. I believe mine are nice and clear. Dr. Pat, do you think they're clear?
They look so.
Okay, good. I got an evaluation right there. So when the nails change color, something's happening, becoming a little darker, and you need to ask yourself, what's going on? What's happening with my nail? So Dr. Noel, I call her Dr. Pat sometimes. The treatment for the nail fungi, we spoke about drilling, we spoke about topical antifungal treatment or antifungal treatment, depending on which part of the world you're from, you pronounce it differently. What else is there?
I think we mentioned lasers, just a fancy name for one type of laser. There are different treatments that can be very effective also and work faster than the topicals. And then we have oral antifungals like diflucan and spectazole. Forget the names, but they're tablets that you take that will kill off the fungus and very powerful.
Okay.
The powerful treatment you can get, besides prevention, to get rid of the fungus infection of the nails. There is one caution with those, is that they can cause elevation of liver enzymes. So I'll just at that. You'll explain that later. So you have to be monitored while you're on these oral antifungal medications, but they're powerful. The next thing that you can do, which will take care of the problem visually, immediately, is to have your nail removed. If it's an unsightly, and this goes for even if it's not infected with, if it's an unsightly, thick, discolored looking nail, it upsets you, you can have it removed. That nail can be removed. And, after a few days, a little hardened skin grows over where the nail was. So it's not like it's going to remain raw and painful. You'll get hardened skin that covers over, that's nature's cover. And you can go on about your business. And you can make it temporary in that, you can let the nail grow back slowly, see how it grows back in. Remove the whatever is causing the problem with the nail, whether it was repetitive trauma from a shoe or whether it was fungus. Treat that in the meantime and see how the nail grows back in. It might grow back in nicely. Or when the nail is removed, you can have a permanent procedure to make sure that the nail never regrows. And that way your problem is taken care of. That involves removing the nail root, which it sits just behind the nail, just under the skin behind the nail. And your doctor would remove the nail root. That can be done chemically or physically. And that's it. Your nail won't grow back. And you have a little nice hardened pink skin over where your nail used to be. So that's a permanent and quick solution also. It could be something way down the line after you treat it with the antifungals also.
So just to be
Yeah.
let's make it clear. So you said, we mentioned the antifungals, one. You mentioned laser treatment. You mentioned physical treatment at the time where you can file the nail down, keep removing bits and bits of the nail. And these can result in resolution, but the person will still have their nail that will grow back. But for those persons who do not want to have the nail grow back, or they just want to get rid of the problem completely, they have that option, if it is advised at that time, to have the nail completely removed. And it can be removed and it grows back, and it can be removed with the nail root being, let's say, cauterized, removed completely, so that your nail will not grow back. I always like talking a little bit about how that works. I'll explain this a bit. This is just, the organs in the body all have a stem cell base. And I use the word stem cell because it's a lot of people hear this word a lot. And stem cell therapy is quite common now. But each of your organs, tissue cells, parts of your body have stem cells. And that nerve root that you speak of would be that growth plate, that area of the nail that has those stem cells, which allows for your nail to grow back. So the procedure Dr. Noel is speaking of is something that is performed by your podiatrist, your nail surgeon, your doctor.
Yeah.
So just having the nail come out, it's fine, it will grow back. But if the nail is removed and a procedure is then done to additionally kill, cauterize, just remove completely the set of cells that are going to give rise to new nail, then you will not have a new nail again for that nail. So that's two different things.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
We call that the nail matrix, but I like how you describe it better. The cells that give rise to the nail. I like that. Yes. So, yeah, you described that pretty well. And we won't get into how it's all done and whatnot. Another thing that you mentioned earlier that I didn't include is a hematoma. So a hematoma is the way it will present to the patient. It's going to look like they have a black nail. What it is a hematoma, which is like almost a blood clot under the nail. Okay, so I have to be careful with my
Sorry. We're from I'm laughing. That's the way it came up. I'm sorry. A clot.
I'm sorry.
Which is, let me, for our Jamaican audience.
It's a pooling. A pooling of blood. Oh boy. Under the nail that comes from trauma, some kind of trauma. Sometimes it could be repetitive trauma too, but sometimes it could be you're playing football and you kick a ball and it, the nail started to bleed underneath. You won't see it come out, but underneath there's a slow bleed and it looks like the nail is black, but what that is really is blood.
It's blood.
That can be treated. Go to your doctor, get it assessed. It can be treated. The doctor will either drill like a little hole and let it come out, or the nail can be removed, or it can just be left alone. It eventually will come out. That blood will dry up over time and come on its own. So that's
just to explain for the audience, I'm Dr. Noel. So when Dr. Noel speaks about a hematoma and that accumulation of blood under the nail, which is exactly what she said, a clot of blood, which is a blood clot. Really laughing. I'm sorry. For those who are listening, you'd have to research Jamaica a little bit to understand why we're laughing. But anyway, that's fine. How that happens is sometimes persons may be carrying something, an implement and a piece of iron, some metal, something. Your phone just falls on your toe and you go, holy cow.
Mm.
Or somebody steps on your toe. You're walking down the road, ladies, with your beautifully manicured nails, and somebody passes by in those big boots and just squashes that big toe. You
Ooh.
go, holy cow. And it's so hard, it hurts a lot. That can cause trauma. And then you look, the toe has a little darkening in it. That's the clot of blood, the accumulation of blood, the hematoma, the blood clot in under the nail, right? Right. I'm trying not to laugh too much. But I'd laugh because, in working here for a number of years, our people from certain sectors express that word differently. So the T at the end comes out like a D. And so I want him to understand what it is. That's when they call it blood clot. Here they call it blood clot. Depending on what part of the country you're from, how rural an area you're from, and how old you are. So our older persons, people close in the 80s to 90s, that's the way they express themselves. And that's how it comes out when they express themselves. And so we're saying it, but they may not understand. But I want them to understand what we're talking about. The blood does clot up, right? It means it's clotted in the tissue. That's what we're trying to say. We're not making fun of anyone in any way. But then there's another reason I'm chuckling as well, or Jamaicans will know, and so there are other Caribbean neighbors. All right, Dr. Noel. So thank you for that. So you said drill holes. Oftentimes we use a sterile needle.
Mhm.
Because the nails tend to be a little soft, and put these little holes. The nurse may do it. Put little holes in the nail itself, so the blood that is trapped beneath the nail leaks out. It comes out, and
Mhm.
that helps with the clearing process as well.
Yeah,
Very simple, but a sterile needle,
of course.
not. And I say that because or people will just take up a pin or whatever it is, and it's not clean, and stab themselves with it, and then cause themselves to have an infection. And especially if it's a rusty needle or something that might be rusty, something that you have at home, something that might have a bacteria on it. We don't want persons doing that at
No.
all, because then you'll introduce an infection into the nail. So apart from the hematoma, the blood that is clotted beneath the nail, it's dried up, it has accumulated beneath the nail. They then go and say, "Oh, let me get this thing out," and then they just stick themselves with these pins that are not clean.
All right.
Washing it with soap and water is not enough, right? That's why I use the term sterile needle. So you go to your physician for that. I mean, honestly, some persons will say, "Boy, I'm a boil the needle in some water, but then you have to boil it at what temperature? 100 degrees Celsius. That's what water boils at. I hope I got that value right. For a period of time to say, okay, maybe we can do it with this, but you stand the risk of infecting yourself. So don't do it. It's better if you seek medical attention. I'm suggesting that strongly. Just don't do it. But I don't encourage it. But if you're led down that path, you have a clean needle. You're up in the bushes somewhere far away, maybe in the Himalayas or Mount Everest, and you're not able to come down for another 20 days, and this hematoma is really bothering you. Yes, maybe you can boil that needle that you have. That's clean, that has not touched anything else, that was not used to handle anything else. But no, there's a risk, because the risk is you have organisms such as Clostridium tetani, which will cause tetanus, which is called lockjaw. Lockjaw is a process, actually. A lot of things happen. But I always tell my patients, simply put, your mouth can't open. It's just locked. So you can't eat, you can't chew. And then there are other issues, you can't breathe. And that then leads to death, particularly in persons who did not get their vaccination. Vaccination is a big topic in the news now, isn't it? But
Yeah.
vaccines are good things, have been around for decades. Our scientists have done the research, and with that research, that's why we have the tetanus immunoglobulin. You know, it's a vaccine that you can get to reduce the risk of getting tetanus. So we spoke about the nail, we spoke about the issues that people have when they might want to punch this nail, which helps, but I wanted to not have them do that the wrong way. Well, not have them do it, yeah, the wrong way. I don't want to do it the wrong way at all. Seek medical care. All right, so Doc, we'll roll on through.
Yes, yes. Thank you. So we were talking about ugly toe. So some of the other things we had mentioned at the beginning was the shape of the toe can be part of all the ugliness, the discoloration, and with all of these things come pain. So all the treatments are going to be aimed at relieving pain also. So the shape of the toe, the person can have a bunion, hammer toe, a fracture can cause it to look disfigured. I know you'll talk about bunions and hammer toes, but they're just like bone disorders and surgery can be done to correct those. I know a lot of people are afraid of surgery. Sometimes surgery is the most natural thing you can do. Mm-hmm. Fracture, it's a displaced fracture. You want to put it back together, you know, the surgeon can put it back. You guys have great surgeons there, podiatrists, orthopedic surgeons who can do these things. The toe is bent, it's misshapen. You know, a surgical procedure can straighten it out. Right. Mm-hmm.
That's the hammer toe.
That's the hammer toe, right? It's like this. You can get a surgical procedure to straighten it out like this. So that can correct your so-called ugly.
So the surgeon acts like Viagra, right? Keeps it straight.
Exactly. That's funny. Oh, is that what it looks like? Okay. Discolorations of the toe. Discoloration can be caused by so many different things. If it's just caused by, you know, some irritation, or you're in the sun too much, or you know, the strap of your shoe causes just a little discolored, you can use things like hydroquinone with a retinol. Those things can be used safely to clear up the discoloration. Niacinamide, glycolic acid. Glycolic acid is great if you want to get like the calluses off the bottom of your so on. Yes, to use the glycolic acid under a doctor's care. So those are some of the things that can clear up discolorations. Yes, maybe discolorations due to other things like poor circulation, but then that underlying problem would have to be treated. The poor circulation would have to be treated. So what else do we have? We talked about pain.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes. So I have a little toe here. And I noticed it's not the great toe, it's the third toe, and it's actually becoming darkened. I noticed it. As I aged, it's becoming darkened. As far as I know, I didn't squash it anywhere, didn't squeeze it anywhere. Wear shoes that are very comfortable and soft. But then I realized, I'm getting the same toe like my mother. So what would you tell persons who have that kind of issue? What do you tell them?
It's possible. It's likely that it's still, again, it's due to some irritation. We can have shoes that fit well, but because of how we walk, little genetics, habits, and how we walk, it can still cause an irritation of a certain part of our foot. And that can cause the darkening, and that could be the progressive darkening that you see over the years.
Now that you mention it, I've slammed that toe quite a lot. It's as if women will talk about this. It's as if that little toe or the one beside the little toe just decides, oh, there's a piece of furniture right there. Let's slam right into it. So I've slammed it quite a lot. I've slammed it quite a bit over the years. Since childhood, I've slammed those toes quite a bit into, those pieces of furniture you have in your home. You just go, ow! And then you kind of rub it, put some ice on it, and you move on with life.
Mhm.
So essentially, this is a process that can take years to develop, that darkening of the toe.
Yeah, from constant friction, rubbing, constant trauma, and pressure from shoes. Like you said, you had repeated injury. So all of that is building and causing hyperpigmentation, darkening of the toe. Um, Something like that could be chronic, and it may not clear up with the hydroquinone or the some of the other things that I mentioned.
And that's why I'm happy to have you, because podiatrists are not very common um, in my part of the world. And we focus on the main things. We have our surgeons, our pediatricians,
Mhm.
and so on, right? But podiatrists are not very common. And I decided to focus, today. We needed to talk about that toe and that toenail because it bothers persons. It bothers them and it affects their self esteem.
Yeah.
You know, when our women go out and they have on their beautiful dresses, they look so well, they're nicely painted from head to ankle. And then when you hit the toes, for some persons, you say, holy cow, what's going on with your toes? So we, and that's what people say, not what I say, but that's what people say. That's how they respond. Like, what's going on with your toes? So a lot of women have these toes that they just start to curve in this direction. That it's almost like this is hammer toe, and it has to do with the type of shoe. In our last episode we spoke about the type of shoe to wear and how much space you need to have in your shoes. And this is something that happens over time. It takes years, because it takes years for the body to change. You know, it takes time for that. So I thought it was important for us to talk about the toes, so people will feel better about their toes and pay attention to it. When you have a bath in the morning, pay attention to your toes, pay attention to your nails. We haven't even spoken about in between the toes yet. Can you imagine?
Yeah. I think we covered that in one of our past.
We did.
Yeah.
Yes, a little bit.
I'd like to say, as a kid, growing up in Guyana, we whether we had shoes or not, we ran around barefoot. I don't know if you guys did that as kids too.
Of course,
We
outside.
But we got mud on our feet. You know, sometimes you develop a callus from running or whatever it was, and it to me like a certain look to the foot was not important to me. The way I grew up, it was not important. That you had a foot was important, and
Mhm.
and then coming over here and growing up and going to podiatric medical school and residency and all that, and you see people with amputations. First, amputation of a toe, amputation of the midfoot, like from here cut off, amputation below the knee. I appreciated our little muddy feet. I appreciate someone having a foot. I appreciate those women you're talking about with the toes curled under. They have feet, they have toes. And to me, that's normal and that's healthy.
I like the fact that you said that. I
Yeah.
like the fact that you said that. You see, I love what you said. I really like that. It's
So,
important
so,
because
so to
some
me,
have feet and some have none. Some have
yeah,
no toes at all. But there are
exactly
those who want to improve what they have, and that's the whole,
right.
so we're talking about this.
So I actually had to learn, I actually had to learn take certain things seriously. Like if someone came in complaining about, well, there's a spot on my toe. I'm like, well, I had to learn to understand
Mhm,
that that's a problem for that particular patient.
mhm.
It was a problem. I remember the first time I became conscious of this, a young lady came in. She was crying and hysterical that her toe had a spot, and her toenail, I'm sorry, had a spot on it. And we're all different, and different things are important to us. And for her,
Right.
that was catastrophic. And she told me I didn't understand, and she was very upset. And I started paying more attention. And it's I don't mean to be, well, I shouldn't be dismissive of such things, because hey, that little spot or speck on her nail that she was so upset about, maybe it was just about appearance for her. It could have meant something else. Sometimes there's skin cancers that grow under the nails. We know a very famous person, I believe, who had that. And it could start out as just a speck
A
under.
speck under the nail.
Exactly. So these things are not to be dismissed. And, I had to learn over the years that, even things that look official, they could be just that. That would be the good news, or it could be something more morbid or catastrophic, like a subungual melanoma, which is under the nail. So that was a process for me. I did have to learn.
That in our training, we learn empathy, sympathy, and in our practice, we learn a lot more, to appreciate the human being and the human condition. And that's who we are, that's what we do. And so this segment on the ugly toe is to get to those persons that have a concern, and it's catastrophic for them. The man without the foot would be like, man, you're lucky you got toes, that
Right.
kind of thing. So it's to really appreciate life, but we're trying to get to the persons who truly have a problem. It affects them mentally because of their job, the type of job they have. Maybe they're models, for example.
Right.
Some persons are models. Some people just don't care. But one thing you said, which is very interesting, you said as kids, you run up and down barefooted. We did that here as well. Now, what I find really interesting is in today's world, we're talking about how the body feels, and we're talking about grounding. This thing about grounding, having contact with the earth, with Mother Earth, that there is a flow of electrons, there's a flow of energy that passes from Mother Earth into our bodies and ground us. That's the
Yeah.
talk, isn't it? And there's science behind it because we live in an electromagnetic field. As the earth rotates on its axis, we live in an electromagnetic field, and there is science behind it, and there are persons who will give more details on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have the naturopaths and the specialists that talk about these things. And so they actually sell these things on Amazon to ground you. You sleep on these mats, they're so expensive.
Yeah.
You sleep on these things, these mats, they put it on your bed, you could put it on the floor to ground you. So we were being grounded when we ran up and down outside barefooted in the mud. That was good for us because ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Yes. We
Wow.
come from carbon, we shall return to carbon. Right. And when you look at the human body, I know we're talking about the foot, but I'm talking about life at the same time. And that's the whole point of when you talk about sculpting the foot, it's a part of this Body Sculpts series. That's why Dr. Body Sculpt, that's how the name came around. So we're looking around about looking at, in fact, each part of the body and how it is important to the whole. Now, for those persons that are biblical, for those persons that are religious, one body, many parts, but all has to function in unison for the entire thing to function. Every part of the body is important. And so this grounding, just going to sit at the beach, if tried for persons who have never been to the beach, or persons who have never placed their bare feet in sand. We never understand when persons come from up north, your 38 degrees Fahrenheit that you're experiencing now, and they come to us here in our 80, and they just throw off their shoes and they just sink their feet into the sand. The white sand beaches of Jamaica and the other Caribbean islands have it too, but we love Jamaica. Negril, the North Coast, yes, white sand beaches. And you sink your feet into that nice, clean, unpolluted sand. I like that term, unpolluted sand. And you feel different. People don't understand why. You're connecting with nature. You're having this flow of energy from Mother Earth to us. No, that's a science. Not my area, but I know it exists. So you have persons who will describe that kind of energy that passes between, us and Mother Earth. And just as quick example, some of us, there are some persons who, like myself, when I come out of my vehicle, I shock myself all the time when I'm closing the door. Zzz, zzz. So we're connected. Yes, I do.
Yes.
It's called static.
Yes.
And it's very painful. So I'm sure there's probably someone listening who will tell me, Doc, this is what's happening to you, is what you need to do. No problem. Give me a call. 919-9944. Share and subscribe. Just click share and subscribe for more. You want to contact me? That's the number as well. But share and subscribe if you like the content. There's a lot of other things we'll talk about as well with Dr. Noel, and there are other persons we'll have lots of other things coming up that we'll talk about. But I mentioned that because it's real. Persons may not believe in it, but there is a connection between us that grounds us. We're living in an electromagnetic field. That's Earth. North Pole, South Pole, we're connected. And when I come out of my car and I'm closing that door, I get, and that's why they tell you, do not use your cell phone at the gas station. You can cause a fire.
Oh, that's true.
You should turn your car engine off as well, because sparks happen. So it's plain physics, sparks happen. And you shouldn't use your cell phone. You should actually turn it off. Don't accept it when it rings. You can actually cause a fire. So these things are real, because when this static occurs and you get this, you can actually cause a fire. Yeah. It's friction. Friction makes it happen. Yeah. And I thought I'd just mention that as a little tidbit to put in there. I think we are about to take another break, and we'll resume with another episode. Right. Dr. Noel, thank you so much. I think there's so much more we have to discuss. Thank you. Let's take the break now.
Okay.
All right.